We had like little rules that I didn't understand, but I did. Close your windows at night when it starts getting dark. And, if you hear something at the window, don't run and look out. And I always ask my dad why. He's like, something might be looking back at you. And I usually do. But this one morning, I was getting my stuff. I was getting ready. I was coming down my hallway. And when you come out of my hallway, there's the living room and then the kitchen to the right. And then there's a kitchen window over the dining room table. The curtain was open just enough. And my cousins lived behind me and they had like 2 yard lights. I just happened to just look out the window and I saw 2 dark silhouettes, no neck, broad shoulders, and they were kind of walking towards my house. One was following the other. They were walking kind of like in a line. And I stopped and I looked. And I was like, I stepped back. And I was like, I see that. And I looked and I could see them. So I put my stuff down the chair and I stepped back because if they would have continued walking, they would have came under the yard light and I would have been able to see them. But I didn't see anything. And so I ran out the front door and went outside and there was nothing out there. The dogs wasn't barking. It was quiet. And so I got in my car and I backed up and I went over towards that yard and I hit my brights and got out and looked because, I thought, well, maybe they just laid down. No, they were gone. And that was just so weird. It was like, I saw them. So I talked to my cousin the next night and I said, the evening, and I said, was anybody out? And she's like, no, we were all in. She said, but, my son and his wife did hear voices from behind the house. She said, they sounded human. They sounded like they were talking English, but they couldn't make out what they were saying. They said it was almost like they were arguing. I've seen them enough to know what they look like. And to me, that's what it was. 2 hairy people coming across, like walking towards my house. That's when people ask me, I say, yeah, I grew up with them in my backyard, which is true.
I'd like to welcome Steve Edmonds to Bigfoot Crossroads. I was part of a podcast that interviewed you years and years and years ago.
I don't know if it was called a podcast then.
No, podcasts weren't even a thing yet. I don't know what you would call it, but
that's how long ago it was.
Yeah, but we know a lot of the same people. I've been down in the areas that you've done a lot of stomping around at, but your name has always come up in conversations as someone who's very knowledgeable about the ongoing stuff down in that part of, I guess you'd call that South Central Oklahoma. If you don't mind, just to get things rolling, just tell a little bit about yourself.
There's not really much to tell. No, I grew up down here. It's considered South Central, but it used to be considered Southwestern because, Oklahoma, the city's grown so big. It's now we used to just be called Southwestern, but now it seems like we're getting sucked into the South Central. But yeah, I grew up here. I'm Native American. I'm Caddo in Western Delaware. And, that being Native American, we've always had stories and I've always heard stories. But then I started having my own experiences at, I think I was about 10 or 11 when I first saw the big hairy guy, and we call him Hairy Man. We call him Hairy People or Hairy Man. That's what the Caddos refer to him as. And so I think I was 10 when I saw him.
Wow.
Walk across the clearing down there by the tribe. And, my dad really didn't talk to me much about it, but after I, ran down there and told him what I saw, he said, okay, he said, just stick close to here, don't go too far. And then he started telling me some of the stories, that he heard and that was passed along. And, and I always said, when I was younger, he would always make me come in before it got dark. Like it would be sun be going down. He's like, okay, Steve, come on in. And I'm like, I'm playing, I was on the basketball court. It's all dirt. I had my little roads and houses built and I have my cars and my Hot Wheels and stuff. And I'm like, really, Dad? He goes, yeah. He goes, bring your cars in, mess up your roads. And I was like, Dad. He's like, mess up your roads, bring your cars in. So it was like he was like, don't leave any signs that the kids are here.
Yeah.
And I never thought about that until I got older, and hearing some of these stories, and as other Native Americans saying, telling their kids come in before dark, or don't go out when it's foggy, and stuff like that. And my older brother, I was telling him about that. And he said, man, when we were little, because I'm quite younger than them, he said, when we were little, they let us stay out till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. I guess they didn't care if anything got us.
I wanted to ask you, in general, how does your tribe view this thing? Is it like a spiritual being? Is it a physical being? Is it just another animal out there? Or, you said you call it the hairy man in people, so I guess you guys see it as a person.
Well, it's funny because I never did pursue that. I never did go around asking, which I wished I would have when we had more elders. Uh-huh. But I went to a couple of people and asked them, and they said, some of the elders say, don't talk about it, don't worry about it, don't bother him, he don't bother you. And then there were some that were saying, well, he's kind of like a guardian protector, he watches out. So there's kind of a conflicting stories I get. So I went and talked to one of my, there was when you're little like that and you go to the dances and stuff, you develop friends, whether they're from different schools and stuff, different towns. And so you start hanging around with them. And we had a pretty, ragtag group that, we'd always get with. And, my friend Leonard, he's in, doing the peyote. He's like moved into the elder spot on peyote meetings and stuff. So I was talking to him about that. I said, all the times that, your dad and stuff did peyote meetings, I said, did they ever talk about it? He said, they never really talked about it. They know he's there, but they never really talked about him or acknowledged, that he's there. And he were telling me some of his experiences that he had, growing up, because he grew up, over around Lakiba. It's not very far from where I grew up. And he was telling me some of his experiences. We were talking the other night, and I was like, wow. I said, we got to sit down and, eat dinner or drink coffee or something and talk. Because I said, I'm sure you've got a lot of stories. And he said, yeah. And he hasn't heard some of my stories. So we're gonna get together and I'm gonna get some more stories, because he had some good ones. I talked to some people that have experiences, and it's like, I think I'm safe to say that there are quite a few people that think that he may be a interdimensional creature. And I know a lot of people in the Bigfoot world say, don't be talking about that. That's not even, possible, blah, blah, blah. But it is possible. Because the way that I was raised and the way the Native Americans are raised, there's different things out there. And there were some things that were here before we were even here. So I can't really speak for the way my tribe looks at it, but the way I do is I think that they can be interdimensional, and that they can, they disappear quick. And so I don't know, people talk about cloaking, and there's a lot of Native Americans talk about, how they just disappear right there. And I've talked to a lot of people that had that experience. In fact, not about 5 years ago, because I leave in the morning, I work, and sometimes I leave my house about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, drive to Oklahoma City. And I always close my curtain. My mom always taught me to close my curtains when it starts getting dark. That was another, like I said, we had like little rules that I didn't understand, but I did. They never told me. They wouldn't tell me, close your windows at night when it starts getting dark. Because I'd always, if you hear something at the window, don't run and look out. And I always ask my dad why. He's like, something might be looking back at you. So that was good enough to keep me from peeking out any windows at night.
Yeah, buddy, that'll work.
Yeah. And I usually do But this one night in particular, one morning, I was getting my stuff. I was getting ready. I was coming down my hallway. And when you come out of my hallway, there's the living room and then the kitchen to the right. And then there's a kitchen window over the dining room table. And I mean, the light, everything, it was just weird because the curtain was open just enough. And my cousins lived behind me and they had like 2 yard lights. And I just happened to just look out the window and I saw 2 dark silhouettes, no neck, broad shoulders, and they were kind of walking towards my house. One was following the other. They were walking kind of like in a line. And I stopped and I looked. I was like, and I stepped back. And I was like, I see that. And I looked and I could see them. So I put my stuff down the chair and I stepped back because if they would have continued walking, they would have came under the yard light and I would have been able to see them. But I didn't see anything. And I looked. And so I ran out the front door, which I should have ran out the back door, but I ran out the front door because that was the closest, and went outside and there was nothing out there. The dogs wasn't barking. It was quiet. And so I got in my car and I backed up and I went over to that yard and I hit my brights and got out and looked because, I thought, well, maybe they just laid down. No, they were gone. And we couldn't find any. I think Kurt came by. We did go and look because he's happened to be down that day or that night. We found an impression, but couldn't make anything of it. But yeah, that was just so weird. I mean, it was like, I saw them. So I talked to my cousin the next night and I said, the evening, and I said, was anybody out? And she's like, no, we were all in. She said, but, my son and his wife did hear voices from behind the house. She said they sounded human. They sounded like they were talking English, but they couldn't make out what they were saying. They said it was almost like they were arguing almost. Huh. And they heard that earlier that night. And she said, but no, nobody was out roaming around. And I said, okay, well, I saw, and it was 2 figures. Like I said, I've seen them enough to know what they look like. And to me, that's what it was. Two hairy people coming across, like walking towards my house, like cutting across, because I think they cut across the yards through here, but or they used to, because we used to get all kinds of activity around here. That's when people ask me, I say, yeah, I grew up with them on my backyard, which is true. But here lately, it seems like the activity's really, really been non-existent.
Huh. What do you think happened that caused that? They just left the area or something?
Well, like I said, I know people, I just ask people to kind of keep an open mind because I've seen things, not just with, hairy man and the hairy people. I've seen, paranormal things that are just, I've seen a deer change into an owl, just boom, like that.
Whoa.
Yeah. So I think that there's something else coming in on their property. It's a territorial thing. I heard it once explained to me that, that they have their territories, but there are also other things out there that, push onto the territory. And so I've heard some weird coyote vocalizations that I've never heard before. And I recorded one, it's been probably about a year and a half ago. And sometimes whenever it would vocalize, the coyotes would be quiet, and then sometimes they'd start up. But this night, that there was nothing going on, and it made a vocalization, and it was, outside my house, and I could hear it like walking away, but it was still doing its vocalization. So I don't know. And then maybe it's just the heat. I think they move. I think, they're they eat what they can and what they can find. And I think that might be part of it too. But I really don't know, because that's why I was talking to some people down here at the, we had a meeting, a culture meeting. We get together and we'll meet, sing, practice our songs and, stories and stuff. And so we sung until 11:30. And then we moved outside, and there's 4 of us out there talking. We talked till 2:30. And so the security guard came out, and I know her. And so we were talking. So I was asking her, have you heard anything? She says, not in a while. And she said, I haven't even heard coyotes, which I haven't either. And And I said, well, what do you think? I mean, have you ever heard it? When's the last time you heard something? She goes, it's been over a year. And I said, well, I don't know. I said, I kind of miss them. but at the same time, you're like, well, what was that? You know?
Tell me about that first sighting that you had whenever you were a kid. Like, what exactly happened?
Okay, well, where I live, the tribal headquarters or whatever is, you know, a little ways from my house. And so my mom, my dad, and I had an aunt and uncle that were down there in the community house where they were cutting meat. I guess we were going to have a dinner. I don't remember. I was like, I want to say I was 10.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had I call them aunt and uncle. They're a distant aunt and uncle. They weren't my like real aunt and uncle, but you know, we call them aunt and uncle.
Yeah.
And so they had a son. His name was Junior. We called him Juge. And so him and I were walking around. You know, this was, you know, 80s, and he had a little boom box, and so we were just walking around the dance arena, and you know, just walking around, just, you know, out messing around because, you know, parents were down there cutting meat. And so we were walking, and I got to the top of the hill, and he said, well, I got to use the restroom. And there was an old outhouse just, you know, a little ways off. It didn't work, but he says boombox down, went behind the outhouse to relieve himself. And so I'm sitting there, you know, kicking rocks because it was all gravel then. The roads were gravel, and I was kicking rocks, looking down, and I was happening to look up and look to my east, and there was a hill, and there was a little bit of a clearing, probably about a 10-foot clearing. And I saw him. He walked across that clearing. He took that clearing and just pretty much like one step, probably about 7 foot tall, black shiny hair, because the sun was going down in the west. I was looking east. So, you know, the sun was kind of low. And so I could just see his hair shining. It was just black shiny hair. He didn't look at me. He didn't turn around. He just, you know, walked across that clearing, and I was like, Juge, I'm getting out of here. And I took off running. I didn't even wait for him. He came running back there and grabbed his boombox, and I see, wait, what's going on? Hey, where you going? And I'm gone, dude. I'm Forrest Gumping it, you know. Yeah, and I get down to the community house, and I even slowed down to I just hit the house, boom, and went rolling in there. And my dad's like, what's wrong? And I said, I just saw this big hairy thing like Bigfoot up there on the hill. And he just kind of looked at me and looked at Uncle Mel, and he goes, well, just stay around here and then don't go too far. And I was like, okay. Yeah. After seeing that, I didn't go anywhere. I stayed, you know, in the house. And then on the way home, you know, after he got home, which is not very far, he started telling me some stories and stuff. And, you know, well, what you probably saw was this, and, you know, don't be scared of them. You know, they're not going to hurt you. If, you know, just you know, kind of mind your own business and don't mind their own business. And, you know, just trying to calm me down because, you know, that was something else, you know, to see that at 10 years old. And
yeah.
So then after that, I mean, but before that, I should say, I was telling you, I remember some things that I, you know, so forgot, but a couple years before that, like we'd have the dances down there, and on the tree line on the road going into to the property, it was, you know, a wood line, and we would go down there and we would we'd pick something up and throw it into the trees, and something would come out of the trees. Like if we threw a rock, and the rock would come back out. And if we picked something up, you know, threw it in there, then it would come back out. And then we like 10 feet from the tree line, this tree would just start shaking real hard. You know, oh, cool. And then we'd throw something at it, and then something would throw it back. And we did that. I mean, like every dance that we had, we'd do that. We'd go, and then finally my dad found out. He's like, get up here and quit messing with those. And I said, quit messing with what? He said, just don't be doing that. He said, just leave it alone. And I was like, okay. So that was before I, you know, I was like a couple years before I actually physically saw him. But yeah, we'd throw things in the tree line, and it'd throw things back. And it would just start, like we had that one time where we had like 3 trees just violently shaking all at the same time, but they were spread out at about, you know, 20 yards apart, but they were close enough to where we could see them, but we couldn't see what was shaking them.
Yeah.
And then, they'd say, don't whistle at night. Don't whistle while you're walking through the woods. And we'd be down there. We'd whistle, and they'd whistle back. And we'd whistle. It was almost like Simon, because we'd change our whistle, and it would change its whistle. It was just, mocking what we were doing. So I don't know if they were juveniles. I don't know if they were older, but I guess they liked the attention. I want to say that they were, juveniles, because, we were playing. It's what we were doing.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the stories that I heard from down there were kind of centered around kids too.
Yeah. From what I can, what I've observed, or what is that, if you want to kind of draw them out, or they're curious, you can have kid voices, because they like to, I guess, check out what the kids are doing. I think they're playful is what it is. I mean, that's just me. I mean, you hear some of the tribes out west or northwest that, while they grab kids, or, they grab, and see around here. Well, see, what I was told was, when, our original lands are around the corners of Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, and Louisiana. That's where that's our homelands. And from what my dad told me, was what elders told him was that they followed us as we migrated. We had migrated to Texas, then up to Oklahoma, and I was told that they followed us up from Louisiana.
Really?
So that they've kind of always been with the tribe. That's what I'm saying. So some people say, that they were kind of like guardians a little bit. That they watched out for us, and then but that's kind of what I believe. I think they probably did come up with us, and that the ones that are around here in my backyard and around the tribe are probably the same, from the same I guess you could say tribe, the same family, same tribe. Because I think that that's what they do, is they occupy an area, and this is, like when you go camping, this is our area, we're going to put up our tent, this is where we're going to be. And I kind of think that's kind of what they do too. They have their own territories. They move from place to place. And I think that's what they kind of do. They kind of might, move, but they always come back.
What can you tell me about purgatory?
What do you want to know?
Well, I've been down there once or twice, and at daytime, it's an amazing place. It's a pretty unique place.
Right.
The drive in there and everything. But at nighttime, it was one of the scariest places I've ever been. And nothing happened. I don't remember anything happening. I think we might have heard a distant vocalization. Yeah. But I've heard horror stories about the place.
Yeah. Well, with that place, I think it's a little bit of a mixture of everything. It's a little bit of paranormal, and I think it's a little bit squatchy. I think it just kind of depends on, sometimes we affect the area we're in. Whatever we bring sometimes triggers whatever's there. And so, nothing happens. So that might be a good thing. But I think it's just kind of a mixture of things that could happen there. You could see, something not human, and then you could see, hairy man, or something just quite questionable. There's a place like that I know of, that I used to go visit. In fact, my buddy and I were talking about the same place, because that's where his experiences happened, and I had some really weird experiences out there, and it's kind of like that too. It's trees are overgrown, and you go and you sit, and you'll hear movement, and you might even see a huge dark silhouette, and then you might see a fog, a little place of fog that's moving along the road, and then all of a sudden something comes out of it that kind of looks like it's trying to stand up. It's kind of weird, because that you don't stick. I didn't stick around to see what it formed into, but And after I experienced that, I thought maybe I shouldn't be out here so much, because we used to go out there. We were goofy. We'd take a van load of people and we'd go out there and sit, and, Harry'd be throwing pop cans, things at the van, and, and you could hear them moving, and everybody be getting scared and stuff. And, then you take off, and we did this right before that. Whatever that fog was, we did that before we got to town, and everybody's getting out of the van and stuff. And I said, look, there's this big handprint on the side right there. It started right behind the passenger door and went all the way down to it. Like, it just reached out and just let, as the van went by, just, and it was a big handprint.
Wow.
It was big.
I mean, yeah, I've heard stories, basically, groups of people going to some spot or somebody's house, even in the backyard, and just setting up the lawn chairs and sitting around and talking and just basically waiting for these things to get there and entertain them for the night, until everybody got too scared to stay, and they'd all, haul butt out of there.
Yeah. Or you run out of wood and the fire dies.
Yeah. Don't want to be the guy that has to go get the new firewood either.
Yeah. Oh, that's always fun. That's always fun when you send the new people out there to get some more wood. What? Yeah, let's go out there. We're watching you.
So have you heard any stories about them, like, coming out to, like, the powwows, to the drums, or coming out to the powwows after everybody leaves and everybody's kind of picking up and heading home?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, just about any tribal people that you talk to will always have stories like that. I think they're real curious. And in fact, just with my tribe, we used to have a lot of dances a lot of times, and we have dinners on Saturdays, and feed the whole tribe, and so there were people that would talk about, after whoever has the dance or whoever was in charge of cleaning up will clean up, bag all the trash, and then come in the next day or come in that Monday, and those bags of trash are dragged across the road into the tree lines, and gone through. I had a uncle who just recently passed away, and I ran into him down here at the travel store, and he's like, I was talking to him, and I asked him, how things going over there, because he lives probably about 5 to 6 miles away from where I live, and he lives in a kind of a wooded area. We used to have powwows down below where he lived. It was his parents' house, and he's like, Steve, I've got so much activity out there. He said, you need to come out there. And I said, okay. I said, just let me know when. He goes, just whenever you want to, let me know when you're coming out. And he gave me his phone number. And so I told Curry, I said, next time we come down, let's go out there. And so we did. I don't know if he told you about it, but we got out there and just, started doing the initial interview. And it was still daylight. It was probably, 5 o'clock in the summer, in the evening, and we started hearing tree knocks back then and there. And so he was telling us some of the stories. He's like I said, native guy. Yeah, he said, I was sitting there watching TV. He said, it started getting dark. He said, so I got up and closed the curtains to my living room window. He said, just as I went and sat down, he said, toom, 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 toom. You were running by the window. He's like, I was waiting for me to close the curtain. And then he said, he's old military guy, and he would roll his hose up, perfectly in front of the house. He'd go to town, come back, and the hose something would grab that hose and stretch it across the yard. So you'd have to roll it back up again. But what was really amazing was he had he had 2 horses, and he had the south side of the yard fenced off, but he had those metal. I don't know. They weren't aluminum. I want to say they were metal. The metal corral. How you could just get the corral, and you can just put them in the ground and make it a little corral.
Yeah, like the panels.
Right, the panels. Thank you. And so he had those, but one was laying down. He said, come here. He said, look at this. He said, whatever. He said, well, we know what it is. He said, but I'm just going to say, whatever it was, pulled it out of the ground. It was buried 4 feet deep in the ground. Pulled it straight out of the ground, and then on the pole where the the hinges where you put the fence on, they got the little metal pegs that come up and out.
Yeah.
And so he showed us, and whatever it grabbed that metal peg, little bitty metal peg, and just bent it straight down. Kurt's got pictures of it.
Wow.
So pulled it out of the ground, then bent those like, you're not going to use this, And so, yeah, we had a lot of movement that night. We never did see anything, but we heard a lot. And his wanted us to come back out again, but unfortunately he passed away. So, and when we pulled up, I looked, I said, nice rocks on your roof. He goes, you know what that's from? I said, do they really throw it? He goes, yeah. He goes, I could be in the kitchen cooking, and I hear that rock. He had rocks on his roof where they were just throwing rocks on his roof.
Huh. Do you hear stories of like violent encounters?
That's funny. They asked me that the other night when we were out there talking, telling stories. It was, and that's what they said. Aren't they violent? I said, I'm not. Now with the tribe and around here, I've not heard any violent stories. I've only heard, they're curious. They might, I had aunts that were, doing dishes, look out the window, and there's one just standing off about 10 feet off the window looking, in the window. And I'm like, what are you doing? But I've not ever heard of any attack. And now I've heard stories like, the only really violent story I heard, and it was not really violent, it was kind of weird. The little town south of me. In fact, I got a friend that I've been talking to. He's a poet, and he's a published author, and I just mentioned it to him, and he's like, "Oh yeah," he goes, "They called my dad when that happened." And what happened was there was an Indian home with the Indian people living just right before you get into the town. It's right off the road, and I guess like a juvenile came up and grabbed one of the kids and just started dragging him by his leg up the hill. And they took off chasing him. And one of the uncles all he had was a 2x4 and hit it across the back, he said, and let the child go. And he grabbed him and they ran back down the hill, and they called his dad to, bring a shotgun out there to the house because they didn't have any weapons. That had to be early 90s. And that's the only story I heard of anything like grabbing or, having to use. Yeah. But around here, I mean, like I said, I haven't, I had a cousin that lived, if you go straight from my house about 2.5, 3 miles from my house. And I had an uncle and a cousin lived in the back, and they didn't, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say they harassed them, but they always let them know that they were there. And he was always chasing them, hey, get out of here, and go out, fire his gun in the air. And he said, but they'd always be standing off in the wood line, or they'd just be outside of the security light, the yard light, but and a lot of people see them down there. And but I've never heard of, any attacks or anything like that. Now, but I heard dogs disappear.
Yeah.
But that's kind of a different thing. In fact, my cousin back here, she said that she had a pit and a little, I don't know if it was a weenie dog. It was just a small dog. And she said, I let them out to go to the bathroom, and they'd go out. But she said, but they'd always be looking on the east side, which where our houses are. There's a field, and there's a fence on top of the hill. I got to tell you a story about that, but it seemed like that they always came. They would always just come to that fence on top of the hill. They hardly ever came over that fence. If you saw them or heard them, you went on the other side of that fence. But anyway, she said then they'd bark that way. And she said, so one night, she said that little dog just took off into that, because there's a fence and there's weeds right there, big tall weeds. And she said it just went whoop into the weeds. And then all she heard was a yelp. And she said that pit took off, and she ran into the woods. I mean, jumped over those weeds, and then you heard her kind of making noise, and she come jumping out, and she had a big scratch on her back, and she ran straight into the house. And they said for 2 weeks she would not come out.
Huh.
And then when she did start coming out, she would come out, but she wouldn't get very far from the house. And then she would kind of look towards that direction and kind of whine a little bit. And then she'd go back in the house. They said it took her a couple months before she would go back out into the yard, just be out in the yard. But like I said, I mean, other than that, with people, I've not heard any kind of violence.
I mean, I don't know anything for a fact, but a lot of the stuff that you hear sounds like they do things to see what our reaction is going to be.
Yeah.
And like if they smack the house and you come running out looking, then they're going to keep smacking the house. You can almost guarantee it.
Or they may just be saying, well, let's see if anybody's here, or let's let them know, boom, I'm here. I'm back. We're back. I don't know. I don't know because one night, it's probably been about a year or so. I was getting ready to go to bed. It was about 11 o'clock. I was in my bedroom and I shut everything down. I went to my bedroom and I was just getting into bed, and on the very top of the window, not on the window, but on the very top of the window was like 3 knocks. And I was like, and I set up and I was like, huh. So I got dressed and I texted my daughter because she was living in Norman at the time. I said, hey, babe, I said, something just knocked on my window, on the top of my window, 3 knocks. I said, I'm going to go check it out. And then she called me. She goes, well, call me as soon as you get done. I said, okay. And so I got my flashlight, went out, looked around, no impressions. I didn't find anything. I didn't even hear, my cousin's dogs barking. But yeah, I went out, looked around, and came back in, and we called her and said, nothing. She says, all right, Dad, well, be careful, and if you need anything, let me know. And I said, yeah. She says, you got all your doors and windows locked, right? I said, yes, babe, I did. She says, okay. So well, call me in the morning. I said, okay. So I went to sleep. I went to sleep, and nothing. Oh, I did about a year ago. I did get up in the middle of the night, go to the bathroom, and leave my bathroom light on. And so I was doing my business, and I heard like a scratch on the screen. And I didn't think anything about it. It was 3 o'clock in the morning. It's like a nail across the screen. And I was thinking, I was still kind of half asleep, and I was thinking, I wonder if that was a branch or a weed. I don't know. Anyway, so I went and laid that down, and I got next morning, which is a Saturday morning, and I thought about it, and I went outside and looked, and there's nothing near that window. And so, but that was, I haven't really heard anything other than that. But yeah, it could be a reaction. It could just be, hey, we're back, or, we're here and we're letting you know.
Do you think they recognize people?
I do. I really do. I think they get accustomed to people. Now, I know, have you heard of Mind Speak?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I never gave it a thought, but and that's what I was telling those guys down here. I said, but an interesting thing happened. Okay. So we have an annual dance for my grandmother. And so one year, this has been probably about 15 years ago, I went down to the dance and I saw my cousin, and he had his new girlfriend with him. And she was not native. She's not native. And I started talking to him, and she looked at my cousin and she goes, "Is this him?" And my cousin said, "Oh yeah, this is Steve." And she goes, "Hi, Steve." And she kind of shook my hand, and I was like, "Hi," like, "Do I know you?" She goes, "Oh, I'm sorry." She goes, "No." And so my cousin started telling me. So they came out to work on the ground, and she started getting this communication. And he introduced himself. If he remembers the name, every time I see him, I got to ask him the name. I got to write it down. But he gave his name, said he was an older Bigfoot. His mate had died. He didn't think he had very much longer, to be here, and started telling her about different people and different things at the tribe. She's never been here before. She's never even met any of us before. But I was telling her, well, so-and-so is this. so-and-so does this. My uncle used to have an AA meeting, and after he got through, he'd take the food and put it on a plate, and he would set it, by the road. But then he would sit there and, sing some songs or just kind of, or, whatever. And then he'd get up and leave. When he got up and leave, he said they'd go get the food. And, talked about different, and then talked about me, being around the tribe and not being scared that, I walk at night, through the on the road, and described me to a T. Didn't know my name, but described me.
Wow.
And yeah. And so it kind of freaked me out because I was like, and I talked to my cousin last year. So I never did ask about it. And I said, do you ever keep up, ever keep in touch with it? She goes, no, but that he followed us to Washington State. I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, he said, we moved after that. He said, I moved with her. Her family was from Washington State. He said, I moved up there, and he followed us up there and was telling, told her about my first kiss. He said, behind grandma's house by those orchards. So he was by those orchards, and he said, he told her that he kissed a little white girl and everything. And he's like, nobody knew about that. Not even grandma knew about that. And I said, well, he did. He must have been watching. I said, he told off on you. And so, yeah, he said that he went up to Washington State, and he was mind speaking with her. I guess, I don't know. People may call her crazy, but it was just so weird that she's not ever been around here and not ever talked to anybody. And it was our first time being down there.
And why would she say it was a Bigfoot doing it? Like if you're going to make up a story and
yeah,
like why would you say a Bigfoot told me this?
Yeah, I mean, I he didn't say he was a Bigfoot. He said he was, a hairy, what they call a hairy person.
Yeah,
hairy man.
I mean, have you heard of anybody else doing that besides her?
Nope. I've not ever, I know one instance, that they were down there at the complex, and they pulled in, and there was a little one underneath. He was trying to hide underneath a vehicle and covered his eyes. And then I can't remember who it was. It was the baby. Well, it was a baby, but she was young, probably about 5 or 6. She started crying. She goes, it's saying that we got to get out of here. We're going to get hurt. And so it freaked their parents out. So they left.
Huh.
But other than that, I've not ever, heard anybody communicate with them like that. I mean, I've seen documentaries and shows and stuff, and
right.
But I've not ever.
Nobody personally.
No, that was wild. Cause I mean, like I said, I had no idea. She's like, is this him? And he's like, oh yeah, this is Steve. And I was like, okay, what's going on here? What are you talking about? He's talking about me here.
What do you think's going on at Booger Bottoms? Kurt told me that you guys have gone down there several times.
Well, I think it's become more of a paranormal spot than it has, the Bigfoot spot, because, first couple times we went down there, we could hear something physically moving, and, you could see where they impressions and stuff. But what's so weird is that the Game and Wildlife has put signs down there and built a fence.
What?
I can tell you that.
No.
Yes. We would go down there because you could go down there and park. You remember how it was set? You go in, and park, and there was a fence. But yeah, it seems like the Game Wildlife has kind of started putting signs and fences up along that part of the lake, and so we really couldn't get close. But the last couple times we went, we had it was really weird because I had a weird feeling. That's why I told Kurt, I said, something's not right here. I said, he goes, do you, are they around you? I said, something's around, I said, but, and then when we're standing there behind his truck, I know I'm in the corner of my eye, I saw like a guy with a cowboy hat standing behind there, just kind of facing us. And when I turned like that real quick, because I thought it was Kurt coming up, And that's why, and he was on the front of the truck, so I thought maybe he came around, and I wonder what Kurt would look like in a cowboy hat. But anyway,
probably like a Texas Ranger.
I would think so. All right. And so I told him, I said, I just saw someone standing back here by the truck, but wearing a cowboy hat. And so that's when he started telling me about that EVP that Dan or somebody got.
Yeah, that was creepy.
And I was like, really? He said, yeah. He said, so. And I said, I'm not feeling comfortable. He goes, something's not right here. I said, I know. It's just really weird. And I said, I'm ready to leave when you are. And usually that's because I don't know if he told you, he's like, that's not Steve,
Yeah.
Steve doesn't get freaked out about anything. And it was not I can't explain it. It was just like a weird feeling. And so I was like, I'm ready when you are. He goes, let's go. And so we took off. And as we were driving, we could see lights, and it looked like it was coming from the ground up. But they were moving. I mean, I thought, maybe an old rig. They're fixing to put an old rig in. They got the lights out there. Mm-hmm. But it was weird because as we would drive, it was like they were moving, like they were there. And so we came through Binger, and the store closes at 11, and it was 9:00. Because I remember saying, he goes, you need to stop and get something to drink or go to the bathroom? I said, no, I'm good. And I said, yeah. I said, because it closes at, I looked at my watch, it was like 9. And so we came on back, and then we went north, on the road out here by the house, and those lights. And I know how to describe them now, like on Skinwalker Ranch, when you see those lights coming out from the basin, that's what they look like. They look like they were coming from the hills over here. And so we drove, and we went down that road, and I said, they're still there. And so we got to a dead end where we had to back up. And so we backed up, and then we went to the next mile section and pulled over. And he said, you want to get out? He goes, I'm going to look at these things through binoculars and stuff. And we're like, okay. So we saw these lights, and then all of a sudden we saw like three military planes. I think there were 3. And they started flying towards us. They're coming from the west, and they're coming towards us. And as they went over, once they went over, everything was gone. The lights, everything. And so we got back in the truck. We started talking. We started driving, and I'm like, man, I am tired. He goes, me too. He goes, I'm kind of wore out. And I said, me too. And so we pulled down here by my house, and we were going to sit there, and I was like, man, I'm tired. I looked at my watch, and I said, what time do you have? And he's like, it's going on 1:00. And I said, Kurt, it was just 9:00 not too long ago. And he goes, and so we started going back talking, and there's an hour that we don't remember. I mean, we can't account for. Okay, we did this, we stopped here, we went here, this took, this long. We stopped here, we got out here, those jets flew over, and then we came back and went and sat at that one spot, and he started getting tired. And I told him, I said, it took me like two to 3 days to fully get back my energy. And he said the same thing. I said, because I just want to come home and sleep.
Where would you guess the lights were exactly?
Well, like I said, we were at Fort Cobb.
Yeah.
So the lights looked like they were on this side of Binger, between Fort Cobb and Binger. But as we kept going, like I said, the lights would stay almost in the same spot. So when we got to Binger, we started coming out towards my house. It looked like there's some bluffs, there's some cliffs off to the north. That's why I went that way, because it looked like they were coming from those bluffs, and they were coming out. That's what I said. That was what's so weird about it. It's like they stayed with us until we got to Binger. Then it looked like they were coming out of the bluffs.
And I mean, there's just nothing out there.
No, there's a church built on that road now, but at the time it wasn't built yet, and there's nothing there. And so that's what I said. And it's really weird when we saw those jets, because he's got that plane finder, which I got it now, And he's like, these jets aren't registering. They're not, and we saw them coming. And as they flew over, we watched them go over and we started talking. That's when we noticed the lights are gone. And then that's when I was like, well, let's get out of here, because we're going to come sit at a spot where just a little ways off is, I had a lot of experiences over there, and that's why we came to that spot. And then I was like, man, I'm tired. He goes, I am too. I think I'm about calling it a night. I said, are we getting old? It's early. But then when I said we looked at our watch, it was like, it was almost 1. And I was like, wait a minute. And we started, accounting for our hours. And there's 1 hour that, okay, but from 10 to, from 11 to, midnight. Well, we were doing this, right? I don't know. Well, we were doing, so we're like, it weirded us out. Yeah, it was.
I bet.
Yeah.
There was one time where we were down at the bottoms and there was a pretty good group of us there, several vehicles. I was walking down the vehicles, that were parked there along the tree line away from the bridge.
Right.
And one of the people that was with her, her name was Crystal, and she had a big Suburban and she had a kid with her at the time. Her youngest was with her and he was probably 6 or 7 years old at the time. And I walked by her vehicle and her windows were halfway down and I saw her kid laying in the back seat. I could see, somebody laying in the back seat. It's pitch black dark. And
right.
That's what it was, because I heard those it sounded like footsteps, and I'd walk back there and I saw the kid laying in the back seat and I heard the growl. And I got nervous because, here's this kid conked out in this Suburban with the windows down, and I'm hearing footsteps and growls over here.
Yeah.
So I went back to the rest of the group at the bridge, and I said, Crystal, you might want to go get your kid. I'm hearing some sounds from over there, and I think I heard a growl. And she goes, what do you mean? I said, your kid in the back of the Suburban. I heard something by it. And she said, well, he's right here. He's over there by so-and-so. And I look over and there's the kid standing on the bridge with somebody.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, well, who's laying down in your back seat? And she's like, nobody. So we walked over there with flashlights. Nobody's in there. But I swear there was somebody laying in that back seat whenever I walked by there.
Wow.
Well, I mean, I'd never heard, everything was always attributed to Bigfoot down there.
Yeah.
So the idea that maybe there was paranormal stuff going on there too kind of makes a lot of sense for some of the stuff that was happening down there.
Yeah. And I think for some reason it's getting more evident, more there, because like I said, the last time we went, we didn't get anything. That's why I was telling him, I was like, I'm getting uncomfortable again. He said, yeah, me too. He said, let's go. And so we've really, since then, I think we've only been back there once, and it's, like I told him, I said, it's just not, the feeling is not, it's not a good feeling. It's like we're not supposed to be here, or something doesn't want us here. And it, wants to make it a point to show us that it doesn't want us.
So do you hear stories of people seeing things that aren't Bigfoot?
Oh yeah. I've heard stories of, people seeing a 5 foot look like a praying mantis walking on its hind legs. There's actually a real like a skinny, a real skinny, almost like, what do you call him, Slender Man?
Uh-huh.
Kind of. Yeah, my cousin, his son saw it crossing the highway down here below my house. He said it was skinny. It was real skinny. Yeah. And like I said, when when we were coming back from, my mom moved to Andarko, and so I went down there to see her, and I was married at the time, and we had hers, mine, and ours. And so the kids were sleeping in the back, because it was like probably about 11 o'clock. We were coming back and got outside of Gracemont, and so we were just talking. The kids were asleep, and we're at an SUV, and we come up on that hill, and I see it with my peripheral. I see a deer that's coming out of the tree line. It jumps the fence and it hits the bar ditch, and then he comes up, and he's coming right out in front of me, and And so I'm not going to swerve, try to miss him. I'm just going to hit him because I got the kids in the back.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just kind of gripped the steering wheel, and my now ex-wife at the time grabbed the oh crap handle in the dash because, you know, she was bracing.
So she saw it too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And so just as we got on the hill, all of a sudden there's an owl and he's flapping his wings trying to get out of our way. And he goes up just as we go by. And so we go down the hill and then we come up the next hill. We're both quiet. And so we start going up the next hill and I look at her, I said, what did you see? She goes, Steve, I could have swear it was a deer. She said, I was getting ready for the impact. It was a deer. And I said, well, it was an owl. She goes, is that it? I said, yep. I said, that had to be a shapeshifter. I said, because that deer, we were going to plant it because, like I said, I saw it come out. It was that night. I saw it come out over the fence, into the bar ditch, up on the highway. And just as it was coming into our path, boom, it's an owl. It's flapping his wing. I mean, he's flapping to get out of our way. We're just like, because, you know, I didn't slow down. I didn't hit my brakes. I was just bracing for impact because I wasn't going to take a chance on, you know, flipping the vehicle with the kids in the, you know, sleep and stuff. And, yeah.
I don't know if the listeners are aware or not, but hitting a deer is a pretty big impact.
Yeah. I mean, even if it's the doe, it's still going to, and it's just, it was just, and she goes, Steve, I could swear it was a deer. I said, oh, okay. Just want to make sure we're on the same page. But the kids didn't see it. They were asleep, which was, you know, it was glad because that probably freaked them out. But yeah, I've seen, that. And I was telling about the stories about the community house being haunted. I said, I went when I was law enforcement down there and the window was open and you got to go in and walk the whole length of the building just to get it's an old building built in the 30s. And I went back there and shut the window. And I came back and checked that middle door. And then that from behind me, it was a deep voice that said, what are you doing here? I was like, what? I turned around, looked around. I was like, yeah, okay. So I just walked on out, got in my Jeep and left.
Yeah. That wasn't in the police handbook.
Yeah. But I mean, then that one night, I was getting ready. I was logging out and our office was way in the back. And something kicked the front door. The doors were locked. They're double doors, glass doors. And something just, I mean, it sounded like they just kicked the doors. Boom, boom, boom. And so I jumped up, come running down the hallway and went out, looked around, nothing. Had my flashlight. I mean, there's no place anybody could hide because it's parking area, parking lot, you know, and nothing. And so, but before I started working there, I'd go back there and visit this lady named Ruby. That was her office, and I was talking to her. Well, maybe I was security before I came law enforcement because they're trying to get everything together because they just fired their other officers and they were still trying to get everything together. And so they said, you know, just pull security for now. And so I went in there and talked to her, and we'd be talking, and you'd see something go by the window. They were little bitty windows, probably about 6 by. Well, they were long windows, but they were, you know, 6 inches wide, but they were, you know, just the length of a room and from the ceiling to the floor. And I saw something go by. I said, somebody outside? She goes, Steve, I see it all the time. You can go look. There's nobody will be there. He said, it goes by this window all the time. So I was like, okay, well, if you're okay with it, you know. Did Kurt tell you about the outside of Gracemont, like about a year ago? Like it might have been last summer. About that, we went over by Sugar Creek, and there's a riverbed. There's a dry riverbed, and then there's the creek itself. And so we went on this side because his nephew's grandfather leases that property, and have been talking about strange things happening. Big hay bales being moved, you know, rolled into the field. You know, those hay bales aren't light.
Right.
And so, so we went, and so we had him with us, and so we walked down into that bar ditch, and he goes, "Are you sensing anything? Are you sensing them? Are they here?" I said, "Man, I said something's here." I said, "But it's not hairy." I said, "This thing's ancient." I said, well, "It's weird." It said it's something that's been here longer than we have." And he said, And so, his nephew's like, well, what do you think he did? Yeah, I said, I don't know. He said, is it shapeshifter? I said, I don't know. I said, don't get me speculating. By that time we could hear something coming towards us, but it was 4-legged. And so all I had was a flashlight. And Kurt had his night vision goggle, just the monocle or whatever, just the lens. And so we're sitting there and we could hear it coming. And so I waited till it got about, it's probably about 6-7 yards from us. And it hit the flashlight, and it was a wolf, but it had long curly fur. It wasn't slick colored. It wasn't slick furred. It was curly. I mean, really weird curly, bright yellow eyes. And just as I hit that flashlight, as it hit him, he stopped in mid-step, and then just kind of looked at us and slid to the side, slid out of the light. He didn't walk. He didn't cry. He just slid to the side. And his nephew saw it too. And I turned the light off, and I happened to look at Kurt, and he was looking through that, and he kind of jerked his head, and he looked at me. He goes, yeah, I think we better get out of here. And so we got up to the top of the field. He goes, so I told him what we saw. He goes, I had a heat signature coming across that field. He said, then all of a sudden, it was like right in front of me. Like it went from that field to just right in front of me. He said, I said, is that when you jerked your head? He goes, yeah. He goes, so I was like, he said, I pulled my night vision down, and there wasn't anything there. He said, do you care if I get my AR? I said, if it makes you feel better, if you want to. Makes you feel a little secure, then yeah, sure. But that just happened last year, and
down at Gracemont.
Yeah, outside. Yeah,
man, Gracemont is a hotbed. What's the deal with that place?
I don't know. We were talking about that the other night when I was talking to my friend from Gracemont. We were in Gracemont, and we were talking about that because we were talking was that I used to. That's how Kurt and I met, because I was the chief down there. I was law enforcement down there, and I came across his group when they were leaving the cafe. They had stopped and ate at the cafe because they were outside of Gracemont. They used to have a spot there that's no longer there anymore, but and that's, I got talking to them, and they telling me who they are and what they were doing, and so I told them a few of my stories. So that's how I met Lucy and Kurt. They were part of that group.
Oh wow.
So anyway, but yeah, one night I walked out and of the city halls right at the end of the main street, and I walked out of the office, and I looked, because there's a park when you come out to the left. There's a park, and it's got the merry-go-round swings, and and that merry-go-round was just going, no wind. And I had another officer with me. I said, look at that merry-go-round. And we sat there and watched it, and then it just slowly just stopped going around, like, uh-oh, somebody's here, or someone saw us, and it just quit. And it kind of, we were like, man, that was weird. And then we went down there and took pictures, and there were orbs all over down at that park.
I can't remember, outside of Gracemont somewhere, there's like a little church and a bridge or something. It's like Chapel Road or something like that. We went down there, and it was another one of those places, just, as soon as you got out, just everything was really thick filling.
Yeah, that thick air.
Yeah, and one of us had a night vision scope. This was back whenever night vision was state of the art. Their thermal wasn't even a thing you could get yet.
Yeah.
And there was something, kind of off in the fence line. It's all grown up out there and everything. And there was something kind of ducking down and like watching us for quite a while. I couldn't figure out what it was. I mean, it looked like a Head and Shoulders, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And then there was a lady.
Head, Shoulders, no net.
Yeah. And then there was a lady with us, and she's no longer with us. Her name was Kelly, but Kelly kind of, I would say, she was one of those people that was gifted. Like, she could sense things for sure.
Yeah.
And she was just getting hit the whole time we were there. She just felt sick. She was miserable.
Yeah.
She just did not want to be there at all. And then we had a dog with us, a German Shepherd, and it was freaked out. It wouldn't get out of the truck. It was acting skittish. And I can't remember who it was, but one of us, wasn't me, one of us went to check on the dog or get something out of the truck, and the window was down. And I mean, that dog jumped on him and bit him right in the face. I mean, that's how wound up this dog was, and just totally out of character for this dog. And
I got you.
After that happened, we decided, well, I think we better go. Something ain't right. Something ain't right at all. But yeah, I heard all kinds of stories about that area and just Gracemont in general.
Yeah. Like I said, I've got several stories that I didn't even, I've got like 2 stories I probably need to go ahead and tell you. You're talking about, ducking, and so this was back in 86. How long ago it was? I remember the date, and I remember the year. It was December 29th, and my sister and her husband was living with us at the time. And so, it was a weekend. We were bored. We're out of school. And so he's like, hey, you want to go get John, which is our cousin and next door neighbor, and y'all want to go into the woods? It was about 11 o'clock. And I said, sure, why not? We're not doing anything else. Like I said, this is back in the 80s. So, we didn't have, cable TV. We just had antenna. So we go there and get them, and we go be bopping in the woods. And like I said, once you get over that hill, there's a fence. And so my brother and my cousin in the daytime had one follow them back from the woods when they were hunting, and it stopped at that fence line, and then it didn't follow them any further. So we go in. We had just went and got a Christmas tree a couple weeks. My mom wanted a real Christmas tree, and so we didn't want to drag across the field. So my cousin John laid down and rolled all the way down the hill to make a little trail for us to pull the tree through. So we went into the woods, and it was moonlight, and we could see something standing off in the distance. And all we had was binoculars. So we told him, we gave him a choice. You can either go with one of us to go down there and see what it is, or you can stand up here and tell us which way to go. Left, right, it moved. He said, I'll stay here. He was scared. And I said, okay. So my brother-in-law and I went and started walking down there, and we were kind of talking real low, and we were walking towards where, thought it was going to be. And so we turned around to yell and say, okay, which way do we go? And he's standing right behind us. So we don't know, exactly where to go. So we go where we think it was, and nothing there. So we start walking back. Well, back and to our left in the tree line, you could hear footsteps. Like when we were walking, it was walking. But then we devised a sign, to make us, just to stop walking, a hand signal. And so when we'd walk and we'd do that, we'd stop and it would take an extra step. We'd walk a little further. We'd do the hand sign, and we'd stop and take an extra step. But it stopped. And it did that. It followed us all the way up to the tree line, which is probably about 60 yards. We were 60 yards into the tree line. And so we got to the fence. And so we crossed it. And then we went down like we were going back to the house. And then we doubled back, came up that little trail that he made us, to get the Christmas tree there. And then we came around that other tree line. And what we did was we caught 2 juveniles in the tree line. And they probably weren't not even 6 foot tall, but there was 2 of them. And they were going from tree to, like, almost like cover, like, cover me, cover 1, cover 2.
Yeah.
And they were going from tree to tree. And they'd hide behind the tree. And so they got close enough. I mean, I got the binoculars out, and I could see one that was kind of squatting behind a tree. I was so close, and it was so clear I could see its butt cheeks. That's all I could see. I didn't see its head, but I seen its butt sticking out from behind the tree. And they got within 40 yards of us.
Wow.
And so we were kind of throwing things into the tree line. And then it just occurred to me, I looked at my brother-in-law and said, hey, if those are the babies, where's mom and dad?
Yeah.
And he looked at me and they were like, okay, I think it's time to go. Let's go. And so we left. And that was just a couple of fence lines out from my house. So we came back home and we were kind of freaked out, and we were like, well, I can't go to sleep now, but yeah, I mean, nothing ever became of it, but they were coming closer and they were going from tree to tree. There was two of them, and I could see the silhouette of one barely, but that one got so close that when it squatted behind that tree, I seen its butt. And yeah, and so that was I've only seen them like that then and in the tree line. And then we had back in 2001, that the rash of Bigfoot sightings around here. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so this gentleman, I don't know if I shouldn't say his name, I was calling him Doug. He I guess he had a friend in the BFRO, and he was from up around Tulsa.
Yeah.
And so his buddy came down and set up on the tribal dance ground and stuff, and had his cameras and his little trip wires set up and everything. And I felt bad for him. He's struggling. He's like, I'm not getting anything. And so finally I said, can I trust him? And Doug's like, yeah, I think you can trust him. Yeah, you can trust him. I said, you think, or can I? He goes, you can. And so I went and talked to him. I said, like, dude, I said, I can take you somewhere where you'll get some activity. I said, but you can't tell anybody where this place is. He's like, okay. And he goes, what do I need to take? I said, whatever you want to take, your camera, whatever. So all he brought was a camera. And so I took him to this place where we've had a lot of activity. I mean, I took some friends up there in a Jeep, and we backed up, and we were getting hammered by cans and whatever they could find. And so we left. So the next night we came back, and to get up to that road to go, it wasn't really a road, but it was. I mean, it was an old road, but hadn't been used in forever. And when we got there was sewing machines, big 8-foot ladders, just all kinds of things in the middle of that road, all the way around that curve, like keep out. And so I would go move that stuff, and we went, and I can't remember what happened. Something freaked him out. He took off. He hit that sewing machine. It went up in his fender, but he kept going. He didn't stop until he got down to the highway, and I had to pry that thing out. And they wouldn't go back again. But anyway, so I took him to this spot and parked in the same place, and we got the same reaction. We counted probably maybe 5 or 6. We could hear movement on every side, but when we backed up to where nothing could come in from behind us. Mm-hmm. So to the front and to the left and the right, we heard all kinds of movements. And so he'd video, and then he'd watch it on his little screen. If he didn't see anything, then he'd video it again. And so he got his fill of activity, because he was starting to get freaked out a little bit because they were getting close. And so we left, and it was going on daylight. Because I told him, I said, it's about to be daylight. And I said, they're gonna disappear. I said, so we might as well go. And so, because he started to get all this equipment together, and so it was like 2 days later, I got a phone call. He said, I'm going to send you this. It's going to be on a CD. He said, it's a footage. He said, I got pictures. He said, I'm going to show you. You just have to see it. He said, I can't really tell you about it, but when you look at it, he said, call me back. And so I looked at it, and what it was he got, like I said, they were all around us, but he was videoing to it'd be his 2:00. And you could see, I mean, all you could see was the trees. You could see a little bit light, behind it to make out that they were trees. And so, but he said, watch this one. He goes, you'll see what I'm talking about. You'll see he'll move a branch. And so I'm watching, and you see this hand come up and move a branch. And he's standing almost right in front of us. I mean, he's probably about 15 yards off. but he's standing there, but you don't see him until he reaches up and moves that branch. And so Doug and I went back to the place we were parked and, looked at it. He had to be at least 9 foot tall.
Wow.
And yeah. And once he moved, you could see the protruding head, the gorilla cap or whatever you want to call it. Once he moved, you could make him out. If he didn't move, we would have never saw him. And so he did a temperature core. I think his temperature was 119 degrees. And once he did the heat, put the heat on there, you could see him in the tree line. And so that became his big, he was going to do his own website. He left the BFRO, and that's why he's building his website and everything around. I lost contact with him. I don't know, but he told me at one time, he goes, I was at a show in Texas. He said, this guy came up, laid $5,000 on the table and said, all you got to do is whisper in my ear where that place was. And he said, I didn't tell him. I said, he doesn't have access to it anyway, so it'd be hard for him to get there anyway. And so, but yeah, it was big. And like I said, if he wouldn't have moved, we would never saw him. But once he moved, then you could see him and make it out. But that was the only one he got. But he did record, and you could hear a little bit of vocalization, grunts, and you could hear things hitting the Jeep, But other than that, that was all he got. But that was enough for him.
Yeah.
He was happy with that. I mean, he was ecstatic. So I don't know. I guess he never really saw one that. He says he never saw one that big. I said, me either. I said, I didn't know they got that big here. 8 maybe. This guy was not about over 9 foot tall. He was huge.
Did you know anybody that saw the casino video?
It's like Bigfoot himself. It's a myth. I've heard it exists, but I've never talked to anyone personally that's seen it. And if it does exist, I'm sure it's going to get leaked sooner or later. And if it does exist, I hope it does, because I would like to see it too. Now they've got it all cut and mowed around where the dumpster is, and they got lights on the dumpster, and it's right off the parking lot now. It used to be kind of towards the tree line and obscure, but now it's like they got lights on it, and they take the trash, and it's right on the edge of the parking lot anymore. So,
have you heard anything recent from the casino?
The most recent was probably about a year ago. They were making the workers, when you go in, there's a big, huge parking lot, I guess, that you got for like semis and stuff.
Right.
And along that tree line, I mean, the tree line's probably about 10, 15 feet off from the parking lot. But I say tree line, but they were making their employees park along that. And so they'd have to walk out of the casino, walk into that big parking lot and go to their car. And a couple of workers got whistled at, from the tree line. And they're like, what whistles? What whistles at night? What whistles? So Harry, man, Bigfoot whistles, And so that freaked them out. So now they don't make them park over there anymore. They park in the back parking lot, or maybe on the side over there, but hardly anybody parks on that side over there. And Kurt and I went and sat out there, but we didn't get anything.
The thing about the casino that always got me, I mean, I talked to enough people that it happened for sure. And other stuff has happened, but if you just drive up on the casino and look at it, you're like, nah, there's no way that happened here. I mean, it doesn't look like there's any way for them to be really in cover or anything, but that's just how it is out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And, this, from what I understand, who was telling me about it? Oh, it was on Mike's page where he said that, I'm not going to mention any names, but the gentleman that started the BFRO says that, Bigfoot can exist and is not here in Oklahoma, not in Southwest Oklahoma. I mean, he's in Oklahoma, but if he is, he's down, southeast,
right,
or over that way. There's no way that he's in the Southwest, and because there's no covering up. But I mean, there's so many witnesses, and so many stories. I mean, I hear more here than I do down in the southeast.
I mean, that's what I've tried to, I don't just go around talking about it all the time. Obviously, I talk about it on the show sometimes, obviously with Kurt and with you. But this part of Oklahoma, I mean, it's just commonplace. Everybody's seen it or knows somebody that's seen it. And stories come out of there constantly. Oh, yeah.
And too, with Native Americans, Native Americans don't always share their stories, but they do with other Native Americans. Or
right.
If they do and you're non-Native, then they trust you.
Right.
So, but I mean, like I said, I've heard so many stories where I grew up about, him being on top of the hill watching the cattle, or him watching the kids play basketball. There's 2 ponds that are pretty close to my house, and he's been seen in both of them. People have seen him, in both of them. So I said, to me, it's weird to not have stories. Because like I said, I mean, my dogs were, when I was little, I always had dogs, and they would always bark over to the southeast part of the yard. And it was like something was playing with them, because they bark and they'd go towards it, and then they'd run from it, and they'd bark and they'd like go towards it, and then they'd run from it. It was like, I don't know if they were playing with it or if they were, wanting it, but my dogs are, pretty smart. They wouldn't get out of the yard. They would just stay right there. And because my dad said, look, what are they playing with? And I'm like, I'm little. I'm like, I don't know. He goes, I wonder what they're playing with, Well, I did have one story I didn't experience. My brother passed it on down to me. But where my house is, it used to be an older house that they lived in before I was born. And our brother said his bedroom was on the south end of the house. And he said one night he was laying in bed, and on the south side of the house, it was like boom, 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 boom on the wall. He said it shook the whole house, or shook his room. And he said, man, I crawled out of the bed, and I crawled all the way down the hallway to mom and dad's room. And he said, I knocked on the door, and he said, my dad said, what? And he goes, something just hit the house. And he goes, what? He goes, something just hit my bedroom. Something hit the side of the house. And I think my brother said he's like 13. And my dad said, all right. He said, I heard my dad get up. He came out of the bedroom, had his slippers on and his robe. And so he walked past him and went out the door. And he said, you heard him say, hey, get out of here. Leave us alone. We're not bothering you. Don't bother us. Get out of here. Leave us alone. And he was like, then he walked back in there. He goes, okay, son, go back to bed. Walked in his room, shut the door. And my brother's like, he's like, heck no. He said, I slept out there by mom and dad's door. He said, I wasn't going back. I wasn't going back there. And that, but like I said, I've got so many stories. My sister seen him when she was on a walk like I said, on the other side, you get outside that fence, and, it seemed like you're in his territory. And my niece, I've got 2 nieces, and one night they popped up at my house. This has probably been about 4 years ago. And they said, hey, we want to go look for Hairy Man. And I said, well, we don't have to go too far. I said, let's go back here. And went back there, and there was one behind the tree. It wouldn't come out from behind the tree. There's a tree. And so I was up close, and I was trying to get, see if it would come off one side or the other. And then while I was there, they were laying kind of flat in that field, and they were getting hit with rocks. And I kept hearing, ow. I said, what? Someone's throwing rocks at us. I said, well, you know what it is. Yeah, but he's accurate. I said, of course he's accurate. And so then we got to the tree line, we got on the other side of the fence, and then we could hear him moving, and then we heard one start sneezing, like, it sounded like a small one. And he had my niece is funny about it, because she'll tell you about it. I heard Bigfoot sneeze, and he just starts sneezing. And then you hear him, it's like something picked him up and carried him away. Like you hear, And so that was enough for them. So we came back home. But let me tell you how clever they are. Okay, so I moved back home, and I found an impression over here on the yard where two were laying, but it looked like their legs were interlocked, but they were laying off this hill that's behind my house. Because my cousins wasn't living here, and I wasn't living here, so neither of these houses were occupied. So I moved back out here. So I went to Walmart, got a bag of trail mix, the sweet and salty. And so I got 2 bags of that trail mix, and I left them in the Walmart bags. I tied the handles, and I got Kim lights. And I tied the Kim lights to the handles. So I thought, I'm going to be smart. I'm going to take them out there and set it on that fence, the fence that they come up to. And so I broke the Kim lights. I set one on one pole, put the trash bag around, the loops around that pole. And I went about 10 poles down, put another one on that. I had 2 of them. So I walked back. It's probably 200 yards back to my house, and got up in the elm tree because, it was fall. There was no leaves. And so I got up in that tree and sat there for probably about 2 hours and just watching those Kim lights. Even I see those Kim lights go into the woods. So I sat there. It was going on midnight. And I thought, I'm getting tired. I'm going to go get those bags and move them closer to the house and just go in my bedroom and watch from the window. And so I got going, and I got closer to the fence line. I looked, and those bags are kind of like blown in the wind a little bit. And I looked, and the bags are empty. What they did was poke the hole in the bottom of the bag and pulled the trail mix out, left the bag and the Kim light hanging on the fence.
What?
Yes. And I said, knowing me, they probably done that when I was walking away. Went and set in the tree line. So look at them sitting up that tree watching for us, and just sitting there eating that trail mix.
Yeah.
What is done? Yeah, I went back to go move those bags, and the trail mix is gone. And I had the bag for a long time. I don't know what happened to it, but you can see like the hole that like the finger that they used to poke the hole was probably like 3 of my thumbs put together.
Wow.
But yeah. Just poked a hole in it, pulled the trail mix out, left the bags hanging. I said, and that's what I always tell people. I said, because they always say, how come you don't see it? How come we don't find it? Yeah. I said, well, if something's smart enough to poke holes in a plastic bag and pull the food out, leave the bags there. They're not that dumb. They're not, they're not stupid. I heard a lady that is, that G-Town's coming into play again. She lived there, and she would feed them. She would put food out in this tree. It was kind of a dead tree, and she would put food out there. She's Native American, and I'd heard she had a Polaroid of them at that tree. So it's a blurry Polaroid, but they said you can make out, silhouettes at that tree, but furry silhouettes. But she would put food out there, and if they came and there wasn't any food, they would knock on her back door, and she'd be like, "All right." And she said when she'd open the door, there wouldn't be anything there. So she would go and get the food and go take it, put it in the tree. She said, I'd wait sometimes, but they would never come while I'm looking. She said, so when I'd have to go and start doing something else or clean the house or shut the door and go do something else. She said, and then when I'd open the door and go out there and look, the food would be gone. They'd be gone. And so she moved, and she moved to Binger. And she said it took them about a year, I want to say about a year, for them to find her and knock on her back door at Binger. So they wanted food. She's passed, and I asked some of the family, if they knew the Polaroid and stuff, and they're like, I don't know what happened to it. If it was there, I don't know, who she left it to or where she left it.
One last question before we cut out of here, and I want to have you back again for sure. I know you got more stories. Do you hear any stories about people seeing dogmen or whatever you want to call them?
I've heard stories, and that's kind of what I'm kind of thinking is vying for his territory out here. I'm kind of thinking that it's might be dogmen that are coming. That's why he's, because for a long time we used to have raccoons, possums, armadillos, we had all of them out here, skunks, and for, I want to say a good 7-8 years, we've not had anything like that. And I have a cousin that goes back into those woods and hunts, and he put it on Facebook. He had a picture of a possum head, and he said, "What animal will eat a possum but leave the head?" And it was just the head there. And so everybody started chiming in, well, probably Bigfoot. And he's like, no, they don't exist, But I've heard stories of Dogman. I've heard not very many around here, but towards the south and the west, and out east they have some, but yeah, no, I've heard stories. I can't say that I've ever seen one, but like I said, that vocalization that I got that one night, I just happened to have my windows up, and I had told Kurt about it, and I said I want to record it, and so it just happened a couple nights later. I heard that same vocalization, and nothing answers it. It's because once the coyote starts, all the coyotes join in,
right?
Or the dogs start barking, and yeah, and this is just if I can, I might be able to send it to you later, but it's just I heard it. I think Kurt someone had a similar recording on TikTok, because they said, "What is this?" And they put it on TikTok, because I think Kurt sent it to me. I said, that's almost the same vocalization I heard. And then I have a lady that lives out over by La Kiva, and she said she had almost that same vocalization, and she don't know what it is either. And she recorded it. So, and one night, my cousins have 2 dogs, and one night I heard the dog barking, and I could hear 2 dogs barking. And so when I saw her, I think it was the next day or the day after that, we were talking, and she asked me, she goes, "Did you hear my dogs barking?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, "You know what was so weird?" I said, "What?" She goes, "It was only one dog out in the yard." And I said, "What?" She goes, "Yeah." She goes, "The other dog was inside." She said, "But I heard the other dog barking." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "It was close to my house." I said, "I thought maybe Harry might be walking, by." And she goes, "No." She goes, "We only had one dog out there, and there's 2 dogs barking." She said, "I didn't even go out there and look." She said, "I didn't, open the door and call the other dog again." She said, "I just left it alone." And I said, "Yeah, I heard that other dog." I said, "So, yeah." And so, but I don't know if she still has the dogs or not, because I haven't heard them. But like I said, I'm saying it now, it's been quiet, but yeah, it's interesting. And that's what my family always asked me, how do you live out there by yourself? Because I'm by myself right now, because it's just, everything that happens around there. I said, I got protection, I'm protected. It's just, I said, plus, if they've been around as long as I think they have, then they know that, there's no harm coming out of here. So they may just, be passing through, or, because I've got a peach tree behind my house, and if we didn't get the peaches off, they'd come and get them.
Yeah, I've heard lots of stories like that about how people have like a fruit tree of some kind, and they're waiting, and it's just about time to pick the fruit. Everything's just about ripe. And like the day or two before they're going to take all the fruit, they go out there and it's just all gone, just disappeared overnight.
That's what happened. We, like I said, I was married. She was from the city. She's part Native, and my second ex-wife. And so she moved out here with me. And so one night we're getting ready to go to bed. She goes, "I'm gonna go out I didn't smoke at the time. I smoked my stogies, and so she went out to the back porch, and then not even 4 minutes later, she comes running back in. She goes, "Steve, there's something out there." I said, "Behind the house?" She goes, "Yeah." I looked at her. She goes, "Is that Harry, man?" And I said, "Well, yeah, he's probably checking you out, seeing, hey, who's the new person here?" And so she goes, "Well," I said, "You can go smoke on the front porch, the back porch, whichever's, where you feel better." And so she started smoking off the front porch. But anyway, so we went out that one day. We were looking at the peaches, and I said, "Man, we got a lot of peaches this year." And she goes, "Yeah." She goes, "I guess we can, have the kids pick them. That'd be something fun for them to do." And maybe I said, we'll give them away, cause, we're not going to eat them all, and people can make stuff out of it, whatever. And we're sitting out there talking. We come back in the house and we get ready to go out, and we're, get the bags ready, and we go out there, and all the peaches are gone off the tree. Even the ones that were on the ground that the grasshoppers were eating are gone. Even the ones that fell on the ground that were half ate or bugs were eating, yeah, they were gone too. So, I mean, it was just a clean pick.
That's so weird.
Yeah, that's why she looked at me and she goes, "Who came and got our peaches?" And I looked at her, she goes, "Really? All of them?" And I said, "Well, he may have a big clan." I said, "We got a big clan. He may have a big clan." She goes, "He took all of our peaches." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "They got to eat."
Well, man, I've enjoyed it. And like I said, I definitely want to have you back. I know you got more stories, and, I got other things I want to ask you about for sure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I probably haven't touched on a lot of my stories. Just, yeah, I've got tons of experiences and stories. And then, I said we could even get into a little bit of paranormal if you wanted to, but yeah, it's interesting.
And if you've had an encounter with the hairy man, send me an email at bigfootcrossroads@gmail.com. Check out the website, bigfootcrossroads.com. You can find links to the social media, a contact form to reach me directly, links to the merchandise, and all the old episodes all in one place. And until next time, remember, there's something in the woods.